504 BDT engine out of this Case 1450B dozer. I got my block cleaned up. She's a lot nicer now, huh, with all that grease and the grime and all that shit off of it. And of course, as usual, I'm waiting for UPS. I screwed up. I should have put a hold on it at the depot and just went down there and got it myself, because I mean, I don't know, sometimes they won't show up, sometimes they won't show up till 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening, you know, and I'm really in a big push to get this thing done. I just got so busy that I just neglected to do it. Usually I'll call down there and tell them, don't put that on the truck, I'm gonna come get it, and I just forgot about it. Because I was gonna go put some rollers on an excavator this morning, on a Cat 312 excavator, and called the Caterpillar, and they said, oh, your rollers won't be in until 3:30. Wonderful. So I'm standing around scratching my ass and no parts. I still got some things I could do on this. I gotta clean the cylinder heads up there, so still need to get them over there and get them cleaned up. I'm gonna put a rear seal on this. He said this engine was rebuilt 5 years ago, which is kind of hard for me to believe that it's got electrolysis that bad, which I don't know if he was running that kind of coolant. It looked like, you know, when I got to it, it had straight water in it, and the rust that I could see on parts in there, it looked like, you know, straight water. So, which would explain a lot of his problem. He needs to put something with an SCA in it, you know, a supplemental coolant additive. And something I wanted to add, I had a couple comments on this. I had a viewer comment that he'd never seen this in electrolysis in a motor. He's seen pitted liners. Well, those pitted liners, I can guarantee it was caused from one of two things. It was either caused from electrolysis, or what they call cavitation erosion, CE. And what happens on CE is the liners, when they sit down in the counter bore and down inside the block here, they vibrate and they'll cause air bubbles. And those air bubbles will eat those liners. They'll basically erode the liners. And the way it's, you know, electrolysis and CE, they look really similar when you look at the liner, and you'll see the holes. They'll always be in a straight vertical line going up and down the liner. The electrolysis are usually more randomly spaced when you see them. The CE ones will be pretty well in a straight line. I'll show you here. Look at this one here. I mean, that there is, I would say is more in line with electrolysis, because you got, you know, some clear over here, you got some here. I mean, usually on CE you'll see, you'll just see a straight line going right up the side of the liner, and you won't see any more random spots in the liner where it has, you know, pitted out holes in it. So another thing, when you're cleaning your block deck surface, I mean, these old blocks here, you can use I think I use those roll-lock disc is what I use. I used to use those 3M disc, you know, the little, I don't know what you call them there, but I use this style here. It doesn't tear up the heads. I mean, even on like 6-liter Power Strokes with aluminum heads, if you go easy, you won't take a bunch of material off. You can use those. They're pretty easy going on the blocks and the cylinder heads. Thing to do though is get a screwdriver and a 90-degree pick or whatever. You can get your counter bores, and you really want to get your carbon scraped out of your counter bores, and you want them clean, because you don't want that affecting your protrusion on your cylinder liners. You don't want to stick that sticking up too high and tighten your cylinder head down and crack your liner, because you've got too much sticking out, you know. But just don't do anything to where you're going to take any material off. Just scrape the carbon off and clean them up real good. And if you get down in here to where your liner O-rings are down here in the bottom where they seat up, take some emery cloth and clean those up really good to where they're nice and shiny. That way there's nothing that's going to cut an O-ring when you stick that liner down in the bore. And that's just a couple hopefully helpful tips there, is when you're putting liners in. And then I just take a depth mic and I'll check my protrusion on them and make sure that we're in spec. You know, a lot of the Cummins we used to do, 290 Cummins, big cam Cummins 400s, you know, they'd wear those liners, they vibrate, no wear. They'll wear the block. And you'd check your protrusion and it wasn't, usually they're not high enough. And then you'd have to shim them. You know, take shims and stick under the liner flange to get your protrusion right. And if you had the deck block surface cut, that'll, you know, if you had this block resurfaced, then that's another thing. You gotta really check your protrusion and make sure that you're not sticking up. If you had your block deck cut, you'll be sticking up too high. So you'll have to cut your counterbores. And most machine shops, if they know what they're doing, when they cut their block deck surface, they should be taking the same amount off the counterbore. You know, so that's still true and right. So, well guys, I'll be back when we're sticking liners in and putting this thing together. It's well, it's about 7:30 p.m. right now. Story of the day was we second day aired this thing. Paid $150 for second day air. I get my parts through Ag Kits. They're on the internet. Really good outfit. They're parts guys. They have a huge machine shop too, so you can really talk to some good, knowledgeable people there about your parts for a lot of these industrial, construction, and agricultural products. I can't say good enough things about them. They've always been really good with me. I bought a lot of engine rebuild kits from those guys, but they have a distribution point in Phoenix, Arizona. So they stuck it on a plane, and you look at the tracking thing on your phone, and it got sent clear to Louisville, Kentucky, and then it got sent clear back to Portland, and then it was at Klamath showed up there at 9 o'clock this morning to the distribution point in Klamath, to the depot. So I knew this was probably going to happen, and it's partly my fault. I should have went down to the depot early this morning, but I went and did a service call first, thinking I could come back and the package would be here around 10 or 11 o'clock, I was thinking anyway. So I go did my service calls. I come back and I thought, you know, I hadn't cleaned the block up or anything yet. You know, I hadn't cleaned my block deck surface off from my counterboards. I haven't cleaned the pan up. I haven't cleaned the rods and heads up. I thought, well, I've got work to do. There's 3 or 4 hours worth of work of cleanup to do before I'm ready to go back together with this thing anyway. So, long story short, about 3 o'clock, rebuild kit still hadn't showed up. It says on the tracking thing it's out for delivery. I thought, well, I'm a little bit pissed off, and I'm wanting my parts so I can get going here. And so I had some rollers ordered for a 312 excavator, a CAT excavator. Well, they showed up at 3:30 p.m. At CAT. So CAT calls me and tells me my parts are in. So I thought, the hell with it. I'll go grab them rollers, and I'll drive another 30 miles south, and I'll go put them rollers on. So I go down there and I put them 4 rollers on that excavator. There was 2 on each side that were bad, and then I had to go work on a BB900 New Holland baler. The guy's pickup wouldn't raise. So I fixed all that, and I got home about 7:30, and the wife, she had called me at like 6 p.m., said that UPS showed up at 6 p.m. Isn't that lovely? They show up at the very end of the day with your stuff after you paid second day air. Well, I guess they showed up second day. They didn't say it was going to be at the very end of the day, but I don't know, man. I wish there was another outfit to deal with to get stuff. I really do. But anyways, you heard me whine enough about UPS. Let's cut the box open here and let's see what we got. Reliance parts. I've always had good luck with these. I think this kit cost $1,430. Okay, so we should have. There was another small box that came from Spokane, sitting over there on the floor. I don't know what's in it. Probably the rear seal or something they didn't have in the kit. I don't know. Well, obviously this is going to be our gasket set. And looks like down here all our liners and pistons. I'm not sure what we got in this box here. else do we got here? We got some more gaskets and stuff here. Head gaskets are in here, actually. Huh. Okay, well, I'm going to get set up here, and the first thing we're going to do is get some Vaseline to lubricate our liner O-rings, and we'll start putting in piston liners. These piston kits on these are set up kind of like a cap. They'll come with the rings on the piston already installed, and the piston will be up inside the liner. And back in the old days, we used to do a lot of cap motors, a lot of 34.6Bs, E's, you know, in frames, and we used to slam them out pretty fast. And we had a couple issues. I mean, we had one that the cat motor, you know, what we do, since the rings were already on the piston, we just knock them down far enough to get our wrist pin on it and shove the rod and everything back up in there and just shove the liner and the piston and everything in there at one time. Well, that worked quite a few times. We had a couple issues. We had one there that, you know, they broke a ring on it when they stuck it together, and then we had to pull it all back apart. So now I always just pull them apart and check my rings. You know, I don't want to take a chance. I just want to do it once. I don't want to do it twice. Alright. And then what we'll do is we'll see, and that's another thing I don't like. You can see that right there. I don't like putting any of my ring gaps over my wrist pin hole. I don't like that. I usually try to stagger my ring gaps. So I'll put like my oil control ring, put it there, and then I'll go 180 degrees with my next ring, my compression ring. Another thing you need to make sure when you check these is make sure that they've got them, you know, the letters up. Make sure that's right. And you don't want any of your end gaps on your rings lined up either. So stagger 180 degrees out with that ring. And then what I do is I'll take my top ring and go about 90 degrees from that one. That way none of them are over a wrist pin hole and none of them are lined up with each other. Okay, so here's our liner. So what I always do before I even put my O-rings on there, I usually just do a dry fit just to check it. Make sure everything's going to fit right. The specifications on the protrusion on these is 0 to 6 thousandths. And when you're checking protrusion, you're not checking this top ledge. You're checking the bottom ledge is what you're checking. Right there. And I've even got what do you call it, a dial indicator that sits on a block, and you run it up there and it'll hit that. And I've taken feeler gauges too, just to see, you know, and just measure it. I can tell you right now that that one's fine. 0 to 6 thousandths. You can tell when you've got a problem. I mean, if you've got 10 thousandths sticking out, you can definitely tell. I mean, that's almost flush, you know. So there's probably 4 thousandths sticking out there. But I'm gonna get my little gauge and check it. But you wanna check them before. So what you're gonna do is you'll slide them in dry like that, and then, you know, then pull them back out of there. And then you'll put, when you're doing the O-rings on these, you wanna, don't put engine oil or any, you know, petroleum-based products on them O-rings. They'll make them O-rings swell and you'll pinch one going in. Trust me, I've learned that the hard way. There we go. Just kind of seat it up. Alright. All the way down. Don't hit it too hard. Alright, so now I'm going to get a depth mic and check these. Alright guys, so we're setting our rods and pistons up. I've got all my pistons on my rods, with my rods facing the right direction, with my arrows facing, you know, forward in the engine on my piston crowns. And now we're putting our rod bearings on. Important note on these rod bearings. Had a hell of a time getting that last set apart. They had them jammed together so damn tight I couldn't get them apart hardly. Okay, so when you're putting these things together, guys, don't put any assembly lube. Don't put any on this, you know, on the would be the back side of the bearing shell and the front side of the rod, you know, where the journal is. You know, you want the assembly lube on the face of the bearing where it contacts the rod, the crankshaft. That's where you want your assembly lube. I saw a guy doing that one day and I said, don't do that. That part's not oiled in there anyway, it doesn't make any difference. I'll just slide them in. These are pretty simple. There's some engines you get into will have feed holes in the rods or something that, I mean, I've seen all kinds of different ones over the years that you've got to line up different holes and different things, but these are like, this is old school stuff here. These are pretty simple. I'm glad I get to work till midnight because UPS couldn't get their ass over here a little bit earlier today. I'm sure some kid somewhere got his damn Xbox on time. That's the way the whole day's been. I mean, the rollers for that cat didn't show up till 3:30. It's like, gee whiz, I should have just went down south there to my main shop and just got some other things done instead of messing around here all day waiting for freight to show up. Should have known better. The minute that you're waiting for it and you really want it is the minute that sumbitch he's going to show up at 6 o'clock at night. Every time. Yeah, these are easy to put in. I've had some engines, gee whiz, trying to get that damn bearing shells to line up in the tanks and tighter than hell going in. And these are actually going in like a normal motor should. I like these old engines. You know, I work on a lot of these diesel pickups and stuff too, and to me this is a true diesel engine that has wet liners. I worked on a whole lot of Perkins, and I've done some old Detroits that had dry liners. I hate those dry liners. I hate them with a passion. I mean, I've done enough of them now to where I take a welder and I'll weld a bead around those liners inside. I wrap a piece of leather around the crank journal, that way I don't get any slag on my crank. And then I'll weld a bead around that dry liner and let that weld shrink that liner up. Then I'll take my puller and pull them out. If not, they're just a pain in the butt. But this is, to me, is a true diesel engine. This is a wet linered motor that's just, you know, it's completely rebuildable forever, to me. I mean, eventually you'll probably have to do some machine work to the block deck surface, and you'll have to do some machine work to your cylinder heads, but I mean, to me, this is what a, you know, these diesel pickups and stuff they've got out now, I guess a guy could keep rebuilding them. You could bore them and oversize them and then sleeve them if you had to, I guess, and just put a thick sleeve in there to come back to standard size. I guess you could, but it's just, to me, I don't know. I just, you know, around cats and trucks and stuff like this, these wet liner motors, just to me is always the true definition of a diesel motor. But I'm sure there's probably some difference in opinions out there, but these are so much easier to deal with than, I mean, these wet liner motors are just pretty easy old engines to deal with. We're putting some Lucas assembly lube on here. I was on my way home after I got done working on that baler, and I called my wife and I says, hey, I don't have any, I usually use Lubriplate, but I've used this stuff before too. It works fine. But for years I'm old fashioned and I set in my ways. I've used Lubriplate. Alright, so we got good assembly lube everywhere. Another thing you want to check before you start putting your, I always take my pistons and I dunk that piston, and then I'll sit there and let the excess oil drip off for quite a while. I'll dunk them and just get my pistons wet, and then I'll put that piston in the machine, in the engine. I just want a little lubrication there before everything gets fired up and gets going along. Smear our assembly lube around, and we're getting pretty close to doing something, maybe. Alright, well, I'm gonna go get me some motor oil to dunk my pistons in, and get set up with my piston ring pliers, or my terminologies, I'm having a brain fart. Oh, the thing that slides over your pistons, I'm having a complete brain freeze on what it's called. But ring compressor, yeah, I've got that snap-on ring compressor that's got the various sizes with the locking handles on the pliers, and they work really good. So, all right, well, let me get all set up and we'll get going on that. So you guys got a dial indicator. Just take your dial indicator, try to zero it as best you can, and just grab the base like that. Go from where the so let's go back, see if we can get it to 0. So I'll try to get her to stay zeroed. Most of the time it doesn't, but so I'm going from 0 to, I got about 3 thousandths protrusion, I think, right there. Let's go back. Probably about 4, because it's going back to -1. Go back. So just go along there and check all your liners on your protrusion. In all actuality, if you get one that's like, the spec on this one's 0 to 6 thousandths. You might get some that say 8 or 9 thousandths. If you're really worried about it, take a strap, just take you a piece of plate and drill you a hole in it, about the size of your head bolt hole, and take you I've even been out in the middle of nowhere and took a bunch of spacers, a bunch of washers, and stuck on the head bolts, or a piece of tubing or whether to space it out against that plate and tighten the bolt down, and that'll, you know, that strap will come out against the lip here of this liner and pull down on it to where it's shoving it down if you're really worried about your protrusion, and that way you know your liner is completely seated in the bore, and then you can go around and check them again with your indicator. So I've got another, it's down in the other toolbox down in McDowell, but I've got a Cummins one that's on a, it's a dial indicator. It just sits on the flat, it's on a piece of it's just a block, piece of metal with a hole in it that's stepped up, and that dial indicator slides back and forth on this flat surface and then heads to the ledge here. It's kind of the same principle, but just a little more accurate. I mean, that's pretty accurate too, really, if you can get it, you know, fairly close to where it's zero and all that. So, all right, guys. So I'm gonna get my pistons set up and get them ready to go, and get them in the holes there. Okay, so number one piston, and the numbers, the cam side, the numbers are going to be facing the cam side of the engine on the caps. Oh, let me double check. Oh, we're right on that. So there's our camshaft. Camshaft is on this side of the engine. And there's my number. Okay. We'll set that up right there. I just rest on top of that liner. I poured a little engine oil on my piston around the skirt of it. Okay. Arrow on the pistons facing the front of the engine, and I've got my crank rolled around to where number one journal is clear in the middle at bottom dead center. And then I'll do number 6 piston because it's a companion cylinder to number 1. It cranks in the same position, but it'll be on a different stroke. And this one will be at top dead center compression, and that one will be at top dead center exhaust. Okay. Now I'm going to go get number 6 piston. You know something I just noticed? I got all my rods and pistons in, of course, and rod caps are all torqued down. All these head gaskets are really cheesy head gaskets. I remember these now. The part I don't remember, you gotta be really careful. These little rubber O-rings here, they just pop out of the head gasket, and make sure one doesn't fall out on you. I'm looking to see, I don't see any dowels in this head, or in the block or the cylinder head. That's how it come apart. I mean, I haven't changed anything. I mean, any engines I've ever worked on, there was always dowels in the block or the cylinder head. Sometimes when you pulled the head off, the dowels came with it, you know. And I ain't gonna lie to you, I've actually had the machine shop one time not send any dowels back with the block. They took them out, and I was in a big hurry and a big push for it, and we just really was careful, and we lined everything up and put it together without them, and it's still running today, and that's been 5 or 6 years ago. Makes you a little nervous though. Golly, I don't know if there was something in this thing or not. I don't see a spot for them though, really. Let's look at the service manual, see if there's an actual location. There's, you know, something in there that tells me there was dowels in this thing at one time or another. Somebody took them out and didn't put them back in there. Oh, the poor bastard that does the engine that I did, he'll probably tear it apart someday and go, I wonder where the hell the dowels are. I think that's one thing that I've learned when I send stuff to machine shop, stuff that you want to get back, don't send it over there with the heads or the block. Take it out and put it somewhere, because they'll take it out and throw it on a shelf or something and you won't get it back. So, yeah, let me figure this out. Alright, so we got one cylinder head on here. We're going to start out torquing in 3 stages, 70 foot-pounds, 140, and then 210 for the final stage. Start in the middle, go 1, 2, 3, then go crossways, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Still sitting on the rod bolt torque, the mass. There goes the camera. Well, it's kind of hard to get on with that bracket there for the air cleaner that I left on there. Yeah, I might have to get a chrome socket. That one's kind of being a pain in the ass. Alright, so we went over it at 70 foot-pounds. Now we're going to go over at 140. I sure like these split beam torque wrenches. 125, 130, 135, 140. Because, you know, the ones with the springs are good torque wrenches too, but well, I'm going to need 2 hands for 140. if we can get away with it. Get another socket. Alright, now we go to 210. Pretty good pull. Bought my 3/4 inch drive torque wrench in the other shop. Would have been a little easier on the 210 range. Let's go here. 3. Try not to jerk on it, try to get a nice even pull. Okay. Get out of here, you damn fly. Go away. Dumbass, just pulling it off of it real quick. Hello, this one. Alright guys, so we're running our overhead. We're on number 1 top bit center compression. This actual engine here is kind of, these older style engines, they've got marks on the crank dampener. And you know, you either be at number 1 or number 6. So line it up with TDC on the crank dampener. And the exhaust is 25 thousandths and intake is 15 thousandths. It's like a lot of old cat motors. Used to be 3306 cats, they were 15 and 25. And you run this one the same as a cat would. You'd go intake exhaust on number 1. So both your valves are loose here. And these are going to be an overlap. Well, it's supposed to be, but I don't think these guys are. Whoever ran the overhead's got this thing way out, so. So we're going to start off here. We're on the exhaust valve. If I can find my damn 9/16 hammer, I just had. There it is. Flat blade screwdriver. Over here and loosen this exhaust rocker up. We'll adjust this one to 25 thousandths. Quite a ways out. I just get it to where it's a snug drag on it. To get on the other side here, I can't. That upper radiator hose is pretty much in my way. Hold the set screw. Try to keep it from turning when you tighten locking that up. Okay. After you tighten that and lock that up, you'll pull on them threads a little bit, so it'll change a little bit on you. Sometimes I actually go a little tighter than what, I go a slight drag just to get that, to take up that slack. See, it's a little looser than what I like, so I'm gonna back it back off and then snug it up a little more. I need to get up there and get up there in the woods and get this thing back together. It's looking like it's trying to, I don't want to rain. It's saying it's supposed to rain for a couple of days. I'd like to get up there and get this thing going before I get caught in this crap. Alright. Yeah, there we go. Alright. So we'll do our intake valve. It goes exhaust, intake, intake, exhaust, exhaust, intake, intake, exhaust, and you get it. Damn finger, every time I get that son of a gun about healed up, I bump it again and tear the scab off, and the son of a gun starts leaking again on me. $15 thousandths on this one here. Yeah, that one feels really good. And then I got to look at the damn book here because I never can remember. So we do intake, exhaust, and basically, you know, you're going to do any loose valve. So intake, exhaust on number 1. We're going to do intake on number 2. Like, we're here to do intake on number 2, 15 thousandths. Look how loose that thing is. Way looser than what it's supposed to be. Moving on me. And that feels good, okay. And then we'll do exhaust on number 3. Definitely tell that the seasons are changing. Starting to get cool in the mornings. Okay. And I think the next one we do would be, I don't remember, what's the book say there? So we're doing number 2, 3 exhaust, 4 intake, and 5 exhaust. So we do the next one would be the number 4 intake and then 5 exhaust. Should be that one there. camera. Alright, that feels alright. 25 thousandths on that one. That's 3 exhaust. Now we're going to go 4 intake. Those big long rocker studs where the valve covers bolt down, get in the way. Yeah, a lot of automotive guys, they just, I don't know, you know, hydraulic lifters have been out for so long, and the automotive guys, they've, you know, they just, running a valve train by hand is just unheard of with them, and you know, all hydraulic lifters usually just torque them down. Because that hydraulic lifter will take up the slack. Okay, so 5 exhaust. And I always forget, so I gotta look at the damn book. So this is number 5 exhaust here. And then we'll rotate the crank 360 degrees, and then we'll do the rest of it. Then number 6 will be on top dead center, and then number 1 will be on top dead center exhaust. Let me get the camera over here and you can see what's going on. Alright. How's that feel? It's pretty good. Okay. Alright, so let's rotate the crank around 360 degrees. Back to our mark. I need to kind of highlight that mark. Maybe scratch it a little bit better here. I can see where I'm at. Oh, go fly away so I can hear what I'm doing. Kind of like to hear this engine when I'm rolling it over by hand in case something hits or something, but I can't hear shit with one of those things flying over. Keep an eye on my timing marks. Yeah, you know you screwed up when you go rolling it around. Something binds up on you. You know you're in trouble. You're a little stiff because we got compression, but that's what we want. We want good compression. Alright, so I'm going to have to put the camera down so I can get my light out. We should be on number 6 now. Top dead center compression. Both of these valves should be tight on number 1. This is valve, what they call valve overlap. So your companion cylinder is going to be in valve overlap. A lot of people, I don't know, valve overlap, I'll try to explain it. The intake and exhaust valve will be open momentarily on top dead center exhaust, and the whole purpose of that is a scavenging effect. It'll allow the intake air to come into the cylinder and shove the exhaust gas out of the cylinder. So that's what they call scavenging. And here we are on number 6. So here we go again. Alright, so exhaust first. So that's for right here. And I lost my place here. Alright. After this, we'll put the fuel lines on and valve covers and all that, valve cover gaskets, and then all I gotta really do is put the pickup tube and the pan on and we're ready to go. Oh, I still gotta do the rear seal. I told him I'd put a rear seal in while I had it here. Being the thing was out of the machine. Then I gotta go down to McDowell there, and I got a water truck there for one of the nurseries. It's got an N14 Cummins in it, and I looked at it a little bit yesterday morning. Had a misfire, and did a cylinder drop test with my diagnostic thing and cut out the injectors, and number 4, it didn't make any difference what I did. It wouldn't do anything. So I got out on them N14s. You know your injectors plug into the side of your rocker box there, and so I checked that away and just unplugged it, you know, right there, and then it still didn't make any difference. So pretty certain it's an injector. I'm going to go down there this morning. I'm going to swap number 3 with number 4 injector, and then unplug it again with the rocker boxes off and just make damn sure that's what the problem is. I mean, I don't think it's a dead hole. It's not, doesn't have any blow by or anything, so okay, now we just, anyone you didn't adjust before, do them now. Here's another intake valve we'll do. Basically, they're just going off the cam profile. Wherever the cam lobes, you know, at the flat spot, to where the valve's closed, they're adjusting the valve. Cummins usually is the one that's the newer, the older big cams, and they're the ones that were, I mean, they made them. I mean, I've done them enough that I understand them pretty good if you've watched the videos. But when I first started, I mean, them Cummins, they really confused me. I screwed a couple of them up. I mean, I didn't screw any engines up really, but I ran them backwards and, well, ran them in the wrong, you know, the wrong method. And I'd go to roll the engine over, and the son of a bitch wouldn't turn over by hand, so, well, that ain't right. So now we're going to do, looks like number 4 exhaust. We did 4 intake last time. Yeah, this is how Cat runs their overheads on their engines. Being this has got an injection pump on it, we don't have to worry about, and just got nozzles in it, we don't got to worry about setting injector height or anything. That's nice. The old B models, you didn't have to worry about setting injector height on those either. And when they came out with the E model, though, came out with unit injectors, yeah, you had to set injector height. Wasn't paying attention there, guys. Get to talking into the camera there, and we ran that at 15 thousandths. That should be 25. Okay. We did 3 exhaust last time, I'm pretty sure, so we'll probably do 3 intake. And then I think we'll be doing 2 exhaust. Yeah. Alright. Turbo pressure line's right damn way. Man, that sucker's loose. I want to run quite a bit better and get the damn overhead set. You know, even though as sick as this thing was, it fired right up when I went up there to start it, because he had it nosed into the brush, and he says, oh, it'll light right off, and it didn't make a half a revolution, and that thing just lit right off, so. Get up to the woods there and I get this thing started, I'm going to actually pull the valve covers back off, and then I like to start them and make sure my rockers are oiling. Just a good rule of thumb. Alright, let's roll it back around to number 1, make sure everything, nothing's binding up on it. Okay, well, she feels good. Alright guys, so yeah, that's how you run the valve sets on a 504 BDT. Well, we'll get the valve covers on her and get the fuel lines back on it and get the crane hooked up to it and get the pan on it. And go get some fuel filters and some oil filters at Napa, and I don't know when I gotta go down there and check on that N14 and put a shift panel on a 6715 John Deere, so probably not going to be able to get down there till tomorrow morning and get this thing back in the cat. So that's the end of this video. The next video will be when we are putting the engine back in and firing it up. Thanks for watching, guys.